That's it. One of the two biggest cases everybody was looking for, gay marriage. It is now legalized nationwide by the U.S. Supreme Court. That is the opinion that was just handed down.
Some people just don't like it. They don't believe in it. They don't think it's right.
Florida's controversial legislation, dubbed by critics as the Don't Say Gay bill.
On the same day, a group of 31 people affiliated with the white nationalist group Patriot Front were arrested near a pride parade.
Russian police detained as many as 30 gay rights activists who took part in an unsanctioned rally in St. Petersburg.
33 House Republicans introduced a federal version of the Don't Say Gay bill yesterday.
I don't know where my son is. No one can tell me where my son is.
Ken Paxton issued a legal opinion that said gender-affirming procedures and treatments, when performed on children, can legally constitute child abuse.
You think being gay is a choice?
Absolutely.
I'm not for gay marriage. I think marriage is a sacred institution between a man and a woman.
Never said a guy who wears glasses is a queer. A guy who wears glasses is a four eyes. A guy who's a fag is a queer.
They should be convicted in a lawful trial. They should be sentenced to death. They should be lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head.
A lot of people who go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay.
You know the guy, he was named Female Athlete of the Year. Did you know that? It's true.
I have a girlfriend now, myself, which is weird because I'm probably gay based on the way I act and behave.
Oh, I have. I said I was bisexual, that's enough.
She somehow has to make it about me being gay. No matter what I do. Like, I was getting coffee and she was like, "That's funny! You even stand in a gay way!"
Transgender children are at risk. 40 to 50% will attempt suicide.
Dozens of emergency vehicles attended outside, including the city's bomb squad and hazardous material team.
We must demand full equality for all.
Happy Pride! Happy Pride!
We don't have enough data. We don't have enough to show that these drugs are effective and that these children are better off.
I am 45 years old, and I have never once unselfconsciously held hands with a lover in public.
It's 177 billion, the same ones that would put homos in the military
Are being taught that they have an inalienable right to be gay.
The Supreme Court recognized that the Constitution guarantees marriage equality.
Wait. All right, that's probably a bit more appropriate. Hello, my name is Chase Myers. I attend the University of Kentucky. I have brown hair, blue eyes. I am 6 feet tall. My favorite color is purple. I play the bass. I've spent far too much money on vinyl records. I like to read. I like to write. I enjoy all things art. And 7 months ago, I came out as bisexual. Like many in the community, this was far from an easy thing to do. And I definitely didn't realize my sexuality immediately. To be completely honest, I still don't think I've completely figured it out. My coming out experience was difficult, to say the least. I won't say much on it, but this was an experience that slowly led me to wonder the many other stories those in the community may wish to share. I am far from an ideal representation of what many LGBTQ people struggle with daily, and I consider myself extremely lucky for this reason. Every day, there are individuals who live in fear, who are forced to repress their identities, to face mental battles within themselves that many could never imagine. I don't want this documentary to be an info dump of statistics that you could find on Google or a retelling of LGBT history. I mean, sure, I could tell you that 45% of LGBT youths consider suicide every year and another 15% go through with it. I could tell you that 74% feel anxiety and depression every day. I could tell you 36% are assaulted every year, or maybe that 75% face discrimination in their day-to-day lives. Or that 100% of trans youths are fearful that they will not have access to medical support. But this community, we, are far more than a spreadsheet of statistics. We are people with lives, dreams, hopes, ambitions, aspirations, friends, family, just like everyone else. I want to look beyond the statistic. I want to find the stories I so desperately searched for all those months ago. So, I have made this documentary in the hopes of achieving just that. I have interviewed 6 wonderful individuals of the community of various sexual identities and asked them about their history and time spent in the community. With this, I hope to show everybody the reality of what we face and what it means to come out. I want everyone to look beyond the statistic. So, without further ado, allow me to introduce those that made this possible. Before we get started with any questions or anything about sexuality, I just kind of want to ask you to look at the camera, say your name, and what you identify as.
I am Cameron Lynn.
My name is Rachel Farr.
Hi, my name is Aria Daffron.
I'm Elise Wilcox.
Hi, my name is Kevin.
My name is Ben Rains. I identify as genderqueer and androsexual.
I identify as lesbian or queer.
And I am bisexual.
I'm a lesbian and I use she/her pronouns.
I identify as pansexual.
I am a, cisgendered gay male, I guess would be the best way to describe myself.
Of course, these people aren't just an identity. Contrary to what most TV shows will have you think, being gay isn't a gay person's only personality trait. All of us have interests, things we do for fun. All of us live complex lives filled with talent. Well, most of us. It would be incredibly rude of me to launch into questions about sexuality and past trauma if I didn't at least take you to dinner first. So, who are you?
Oh god, that's difficult.
Well, I'm a music education major.
Now I'm a landscape architecture student. I go to Transy. I'm a business major.
So I am an associate professor of psychology.
I do LGBTQ plus focused research, so this is super relevant to me.
I would call myself an extrovert, I guess. I have a lot of friends.
I just love music. I love listening to all kinds of music.
I used to really, really love art.
I'm a developmental psychologist by training.
Don't really have any interests other than work right now. Work consumes my life.
I also just really like to read.
I build tiny model things.
And manners, minorities in agriculture, natural resources, and related sciences.
My own research focuses on families who are formed through adoption or who have LGBTQ plus parents.
I work at Smash a Tomato. I'm a manager there.
I grew up in an adoptive family.
I'm also a representative for Manners and the Student Sustainability Council.
I guess people would describe me as creative and outgoing.
One of the myths about this community that needs to be dispelled immediately is that one day a queer person wakes up and just decides they're gonna be queer. This is nowhere near the truth, and it is one of the biggest stereotypes that propels the idea that being gay is a choice. The process of understanding sexuality takes a lifetime to understand, and people are constantly redefining their preferences. For many, this is a frustrating process, internally and externally. with many having to come out more than once to their peers. In my own interviews, I found this exact spectrum of understanding. For some, they had always known that something was special about them.
I think that it was always there. It was never a moment of realization.
I think I've always known I was different. My parents are both gay. They're two lesbian women.
So I always knew that I liked girls.
Anybody loving anybody wasn't an issue or a question. It wasn't like I wasn't normal. There's this little TikTok trend of like people being like, I was able to hide it. I was not able to hide it.
And yes, of course, like they were my friends, but sometimes I would just have like a deeper feeling, not necessarily just friendship.
I don't think I understood the word gay for a really long time because it's normal for me. It's life for me. I like wanted to wear skirts when I was little. I wanted to play with Barbies. It was never a label. It wasn't necessary for me, so.
On the opposite end, many state that this process takes years to even begin to understand, some even having to change sexualities in the process.
I think it was fairly gradual.
Yeah, I would say in a number of ways it was gradual for me.
It was literally in like middle school, everyone was like, oh, you must be gay. And I was like, am I? And that is like what led to it, which not the best reason.
I grew up in really upstate New York in a pretty rural community, small town.
I came out as bi at first in like, I think 8th grade.
Identifying as bi was like super complicated, and I was like, am I really? Like, I don't know.
Part of the gradual process for me was, I think, tied to the lack of role models. I remember thinking along the way that maybe this is a possibility, that like maybe I do like girls.
And I had crushes on a lot of my female friends for a while in middle school.
I sort of remember thinking, I want to take a quiz where I can like check off boxes to determine like, is this my identity?
The point to be made is that this process is far from cut and dry. It comes naturally for others. It is scary for many. Some repress their sexuality. Some express it through identity. And throughout it all, it is always an experience that evolves who you are. With confusion comes questions. There are many resources one can turn to when trying to grapple with sexuality, many more than there were 100 years ago. Now, many are turning to their peers to find support. Some look for representation in media. But Gen Z has a special tool that has allowed them to explore their sexualities like never before.
So once I got into middle school, and you know what happens in middle school, you go online and do a bunch of research.
Yeah, like when I was like 7 or 8, I was like, oh my god, I'm gay, because I like watched YouTube videos of gay people.
I found all of these different words like pansexual and asexual and demisexual and bisexual, and I was like, oh, okay, so that one works. That sounds like what I like.
And I was like, oh wait, I think I like boys.
Yeah, it just felt like a lot at first. I was a little bit confused. I didn't realize that there could be so many different things.
I did a lot of research about gender, and I realized within myself, I was like, wait, I think I could really resonate with being genderqueer and using they, them pronouns.
In addition to the internet, it seems that friends are almost always the first ones to be consulted regarding sexuality. This has proven to be a positive experience for many.
My friend really helped me realize that it was okay not to be straight necessarily.
I would bring it up with my friends and they'd be like, you know what, actually I feel like I feel the same way. And we were like, oh, okay, so we're not alone in this.
With my gender, I told my peers first, of course, and that went over very smoothly.
The people I associated with just make me super comfortable and make me feel like myself.
My friend Brian, who I was mentioning, was the very first person I sort of shared aloud that maybe this is me, and he was so great and so supportive, and sort of made light of it in a way that made it feel okay, like kept it light and silly, like this is a good thing and it's celebratory.
I remember the first person I came out to was actually a friend in that camp, and I came out to her, super cool.
All of my friends at the time were accepting and have all, well not all, but most of them have come out themselves.
Unfortunately, not all of these interactions are ideal. Discrimination runs rampant amongst the community, and it is especially disheartening to hear it firsthand.
I'm obviously pretty enthralled in the community. I have a lot of gay friends, and some of the experiences they've had is just unimaginable.
I am still afraid to talk to my friends about it because I've had some really uncomfortable and really negative interactions in the past.
With being gay when I was little, I was so scared. I came out to like a select few people.
I think I felt too serious about it in a way that almost like if I come out to people, it's like giving a cancer diagnosis.
Obviously, I can look at the news. I look at history. I had a history class. I have access to the news, and I read the news regularly.
I mean, I definitely remember there was a science class I had where like one of the lab partners was like super not cool with queer people.
He was like, well, I think homosexuality is a sin.
In 4th grade, people would be like, Cameron, you're so gay, or you're gay, Cameron. And I'd be like, no, I'm not.
I was so worried that people's perspectives on me or the feelings they had about me would change.
And it was kind of at that point that I had to break the news and be like, well, I've actually been openly bi for several years now.
Everyone would be like, oh my god, hi Cameron, you're president of the gay straight alliance, aren't you? And it was just so annoying.
But it was like more just disappointing because like he was a cool guy otherwise, and like I would have been not like close friends, but like a friend with this guy, and it was like very clear he would like not cool because of that.
Just before my wife Stacy and I moved here, the federal, marriage equality decision by the U.S. Supreme Court had not yet been decided.
It was just really uncomfortable, and I didn't feel like very secure in our relationship after that. It felt like he was trying to change me.
Some of the things that people do have to regularly deal with in the community, especially the trans community, I feel like has been under a crazy amount of fire lately. There was this girl who I had dated in 2nd grade, and so her friends wanted to figure out if I was gay.
He didn't really want to be with all of me. He just wanted to be with the parts of me that he thought were good.
And so they had her flirt with me to see if I would want to get back with her, which is just so fucked up. But it's 4th grade, so I can't say anything.
But we were considering, all right, we're moving to Kentucky, and what is it going to mean for us if we don't actually have sort of access to our marriage rights in this state?
And then we met with one of our mentors, and he had been gay, but then he said that he found God, and God cured his homosexuality.
Peers can have any number of views when discussing sexuality. The spectrum for acceptance runs parallel to the spectrum of sexual identity. Regardless of how scary this may be, peers are almost always the first ones that many will come out to. Many seem to be perfectly fine telling almost anyone they meet what their identity is. So, then, we must ask, who are we scared to tell?
The only people I was scared to tell was like my family.
I think, strange enough, my parents were it was hard to come out to them. My family like telling me to like hide it.
I mean, I was a little nervous to tell my parents.
And even some of my family members, I'm still really hesitant to talk about it with.
Unsurprisingly, we fear the ones closest to us. Nothing is as scary as worrying how the literal person who birthed you will judge you. This is a large source of anxiety in the community, and many report feeling a greater sense of happiness when they are surrounded by those that support them. We see this mostly in the trans community, as the suicide rates caused by an unsupportive environment are horrifying. This fear, this worry of not being supported, can lead to extreme levels of sexual repression, guilt, depression, and any other number of issues. A large chunk of discrimination happens within the family, and it is a feeling that hurts unlike any other. Speaking from personal experience, being put down for simply being who you are by those closest to you, it's a feeling that is one of the most painful things on earth.
But then I told my mom, and she was like, I just don't understand that. I just don't understand that.
It's not something that is really encouraged to conversate about?
The only bit that comes to my mind is my dad, specifically.
I think they wanted it more than I wanted it. Like, I didn't need to put a label on it. Like I said, I didn't care.
I also had a partner in high school who used they, he pronouns, and I was using they, them around my father and my aunt, and they were just like, just use he. And I was like, oh, okay, they are not down with the they, thems.
Often when kids tell their parents, it might just be mom. Sometimes dads have not been known for being as supportive. That's not always true, of course. That's just sometimes what we've seen in research.
Still haven't come out to my dad because he's not supportive necessarily.
I think they still kind of see me as young, and which I am, and there is still a lot more to be discovered, but I think they kind of invalidate a lot of things that I feel are true to me.
You know, if I bring a boy home, I bring a boy home. If I bring a girl home, I bring a girl home. It doesn't matter to me.
But like my grandmother and my aunts and uncles, they would just wouldn't understand. And so I'd rather have them not know and continue to misgender me than to know and then actively misgender me.
I technically came out to my dad a while ago, in middle school, but it's not something that we've ever really talked about since.
He has expressed a lot of his opinions, whether it's related to sexuality or not, towards me.
I don't mind saying that I'm gay, but that label doesn't define me as a person. I'm Ben Raines over, being a gay man. So
my grandma was one of those people who wasn't really in love with the things that I was saying, just kind of said oh, you're young, you don't really understand what you're talking about, so things like that.
It's a lot different than their use of gender that's very patriarchal and very binary.
And he hasn't necessarily expected me to agree with them, but I think it sort of feels forced.
It was hard to officially say, hey, I'm gay.
And with my culture too, they're very open-minded with sexuality, and so it was very easy for that. But for gender, it's just no. If I were to be a woman, they would be like, oh, we're totally on board. But it's just the fact that I'm in between that they're like, what?
I mean, yeah, I'm scared to come out to him. I don't know what he's gonna say, but
Of course, these stories are ones filled both with grief and triumph. For every crushing moment of sexual insecurity, there bleeds through a glimpse of hope, sometimes from the most unlikely of sources. And of course, some have wonderful experiences coming out to their families. Sometimes these stories come from the same people who struggle with other members.
So I'll say that I was met basically with support from everyone with whom I shared, but that didn't necessarily change on the front end that I had a lot of anxiety and concern. I think I got to be pleasantly surprised that, I think by and large it went really well.
So I was at a theater camp at the time, which should have been a red flag for them, but...
When I came out to my mom, we were on a walk with our dogs.
I've come out to my mom, and my mom is very supportive. She doesn't really care too much.
I think, they've got gaydar. I mean, every gay person has a little bit of gaydar, so,
The one thing that I think suggests, a supportive foundation was that I really did want to come out to both of them, and at the same time, this is my mom and dad, and
told them I had something that I wanted to talk to them about, and I said, I don't like boys. I think I'm a lesbian.
I remember one of the people was just talking about Rocky Horror, and it got in this conversation with my mom, and she was like, hey, you keep kind of hinting at something.
We flipped a house, and she was painting it, and she was like, I think I said something along the lines of vaginas make me uncomfortable or some shit like that.
The thing that he said to me that really stuck was, whatever answer you're looking for, you're going to find.
Well, she didn't say that a lot of people aren't straight necessarily, but she said a lot of people my age experiment with sexuality.
Basically, she was like, if you're out to your friends, I'd really like you to be out with me because, like, I don't want to not know my kid.
And she was like, well, do you like penises? And I was like, fuck yeah, I like penises. Like, shit.
But if you want somebody to tell you that being gay is okay and that God loves gays, then you'll find people who say those things too.
And then she was like, do you want me to tell your dad? I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to have to do this again. And then my dad came in and was like really sweet and like hugged me. So it was like a good experience, but it
like, penises don't bother me. I've got one, damn it. And I like putting them in my mouth. Like, and it just all came out. I was like, you know, you probably didn't want to hear that, but at this point, who gives a shit? Like, it's fine.
And she told me she was supportive of me, whatever I chose, and she would love me no matter what.
Sexuality is one of the most difficult things one could ever hope to navigate. It is a battle internally, fighting to understand oneself and molding these fragments of confusion into identity. It is a battle externally, filled with anxiety and fear, wondering who will support you, who won't, and who you can trust. It can also be one filled with victory, with acceptance, with love and support that nurtures wonderful individuals. In this chaotic experience, there can be much to learn and understand about the world, and many missteps along the way to fully recognize who you are. So, a question to everyone. With the experiences you've had and the mistakes you've made, what would you tell a younger you who is just figuring out their sexuality?
just to stop questioning it.
To not worry about it so much.
And stop being like, I have to date a guy and a girl so I'll know I'm bi, and then I have to have no preference to know I'm pansexual. Like, just don't, labels don't matter, just be you and like date whoever you want. It's like, fine.
Just really owning my own identity, whatever that was. It doesn't matter what other people, think about it.
It's okay to be who you are.
Don't listen to your cousins. They're fucking bitches.
I would say don't have sex with a girl, because that was just not a fun experience.
That's something that took me a long time to remember. It's just that I had time to think about it.
This gets to be yours, and it's your journey.
Whether people accept you or not, you should always love yourself and respect yourself.
I think I would have been way more confident if I cared less about labels as a kid.
Truly, just be yourself. Be yourself.
Should have known it the first time. Shouldn't have done it more than once. Shouldn't have done it 10 times.
And also, I got to a point where I had to be okay with telling people that I didn't know and that I didn't have an answer for whatever questions they were trying to ask me.
To probably not have worried so much about maybe what my friends were gonna think.
Whether it turns out to be right or not, we're all figuring out our own paths.
Your experience is valid. Your identity is valid.
Society kind of gives you that notion that like, oh, I don't see any, straight people or gay people on media. I think that's a big problem in the world today. It's like, there's no representation.
There's more time to figure out my sexuality, or it's not even something that has to be figured out.
And really just trust that if they are my friends, or if these are people who love me, then they absolutely are going to continue to be there for you, and they're going to love you more for it. They're going to want to be a part of this with you.
It's hard to see, princesses and princes, and not a prince and a prince, a princess and a princess. Like,
I was so worried about finding that label or finding that word that fit.
Just be okay with it straight up. Don't try to be like, oh, I found this one girl attractive. Like, let's go try to be with this one girl. It's like, you're gonna be a lot more happy with a boy.
You are who you are. Don't be ashamed of it.
I think just really knowing and trusting that this is indeed a beautiful part of who I am, and I would love that to have been able to convey that to my younger self.
The story of the LGBTQ community is expansive, beautiful, scary, heartbreaking, and wonderfully expressive. In spite of all the struggle, it is always important to remember the progress we have made. 100 years ago, being anything other than straight would cost you your job, your family, your entire life for that matter. We've come a long way from being burned at the stake, at least in America. The pendulum is always swinging. For every act of violence, there is one of love. For every shooting, there is a pride parade that has enough passion to cure the world of all pain. For every parent who won't accept you, there is a friend ready to defend all that you are. We're making more progress now than we ever have. Representation in music, media, movies, it's more than just a queer-coded stereotype. This fight is far from over. There is still much progress to be made. More representation, more protests to be held, more pushes for equality and the dissipation of discrimination. Luckily, we are fighters, and we will always keep fighting. And to anyone watching who is struggling with their own sexual identity, we see you, and we support you. This community loves you, and we will always be there for you. And after asking for some advice from my interviewees, I think you'll see just how much support there exists for you.
I would say that you're not alone. I had a lot of trouble figuring it out.
We're all unique and different in our own ways, and I think it's wonderful how perfect each of us are.
I know like it gets better things a trope, but it does as you get older and you're able to just be more of your own person and have your own life.
I'd say don't be afraid to explore.
I would say like just fuck it. Like who gives a shit?
Finding out who you are, whatever these identities are, it's so important. There's nothing sort of, I think, more wonderful about what it means to go along in our lives as human beings. This is just a fantastic part of what it means to have this experience in our physical bodies.
And you don't ever have to figure it out. You can continue to get unlabeled as long as you want. It is completely valid. Whatever you feel is valid. Don't be ashamed of who you are.
Not saying go buck wild, but welcome your confusion. Don't let it be something that prohibits you from being who you are.
And like labels matter less and less. You can choose how much you want them to matter for a lot of people. So just in the meantime, if you're younger, like be safe. And then when you get older, it comes a lot easier, I think.
It doesn't matter if you bring a boy home. It doesn't matter if you bring a girl home. Just bring somebody home. Be happy. It's whatever. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Yeah.
I have so many friends, chosen family, even acquaintances that you just feel like you have this special bond with because of it. And so I would want you to know that too, that is available to you as you are embarking on this journey. And there's truly nothing better than being your authentic self.
Just surround yourself with people that support you, because if you're not, you're kind of damaging yourself. Like they may be damaging to you, but you staying in that environment is damaging to yourself. So remove yourself from the environment and get around people that care and don't give a fuck about where you're sticking your penis, where you're sticking your anything. Who gives a fuck? Like just go do it consensually.
We shouldn't be scared to tell anybody anything, because if they love us, they should accept us. And yeah.
These are our stories. They are not perfect, and we do not pretend they are. We are all just trying to make it in the world, to live lives free from repression and discrimination. All we ask is for a better tomorrow. And the only way we're gonna get there is if we start with ourselves. And maybe, if we keep fighting and love each other just a little bit more, tomorrow will become today. This is Chase Myers telling you to keep on holding on to hope. Thank you for watching.